Deep beneath the waters of the Atlantic, off the coast of Nigeria, lies a prize of immense value. This is Oil Prospecting License 245 or OPL 245. It is not just another oil block, it is one of the most lucrative in all of Africa. The block covers a vast area, roughly 1,958 square kilometers in the deep waters of the Niger Delta. Its potential is staggering. Estimates suggest it holds up to 9 billion barrels of crude oil. This is enough to power entire nations to transform an economy. For Nigeria, it represented a golden ticket, a chance to secure vast revenues for decades to come. Its development was meant to fund schools, build roads, and lift millions out of poverty. The sheer scale of OPL 245's reserves makes it a strategic asset of global importance. Major international oil companies have long coveted a piece of this underwater kingdom. This immense potential, however, also made it a magnet for greed, a focal point for the very corruption that has long plagued Nigeria's resource wealth. The story of OPL 245 is a lesson in how a nation's greatest blessing can become its most profound curse. It is a saga that stretches across continents, from government offices in Abuja to courtrooms in Milan. The saga began in 1998. Nigeria was under the military dictatorship of General Sani Abacha. In the final months of his rule, his Minister of Petroleum, Dan Tate, oversaw the allocation of OPL 245. The block was not awarded to an established oil major through a transparent bidding process. Instead, it was given to a newly created, little-known company named Malabu Oil and Gas. The terms were extraordinarily generous. Malabu paid just $2 million of a $20 million signature bonus for a block whose true value was estimated in the billions. This move immediately raised red flags among industry observers and anti-corruption watchdogs. The true ownership of Malabu Oil and Gas became the central mystery. Investigations later revealed that the company was effectively controlled by Dan Tate himself, the very minister who had awarded the block. He had used a fictitious name to hide his involvement. In essence, a government minister had awarded one of the nation's most valuable assets to himself for a fraction of its worth. This represented a breathtaking act of self-dealing, a classic example of kleptocracy where state resources are plundered by those in power. When a new civilian government came to power in Nigeria under President Olusegun Obasanjo, the controversial allocation was revoked in 2001. The government then awarded the block to Royal Dutch Shell, a global oil giant with the technical capacity to develop it. Shell paid a signature bonus of $210 million, a figure that better reflected the block's immense value. However, this was not the end of the story. Malabu Oil and Gas, still controlled by Dan Tate, did not simply disappear. The company immediately launched a series of legal challenges, claiming it was the rightful owner of OPL 245. The stalemate was finally broken in 2011. The Nigerian government, now under President Goodluck Jonathan, decided to broker a resolution. A complex deal was structured to settle the dispute once and for all. The Italian oil giant Eni and Royal Dutch Shell agreed to jointly acquire OPL 245. They would not pay the Nigerian government directly for the block. Instead, they agreed to pay a total of $1.3 billion into a Nigerian government account held in London. From there, the government would transfer a significant portion of that money to Malabu Oil and Gas to relinquish its claim on the block. The payment was enormous. Shell and Eni transferred approximately $1.1 billion of the total sum to Malabu. The Nigerian government effectively acted as a middleman, facilitating a massive payment from two international oil companies to a private entity with a dubious past. This arrangement was highly unusual. It raised immediate questions about why the government was brokering a private deal instead of collecting the full value of the block for the state treasury. The money did not stay with Malabu for long. Once the $1.1 billion landed in Malabu's account, it was rapidly dispersed. A vast portion of the funds was transferred to a network of shell companies, controlled by individuals connected to Dan Tate and other powerful figures. Investigators traced hundreds of millions of dollars moving through opaque corporate structures across the globe. The money trail exposed a complex money laundering scheme. It was alleged that these funds were used as bribes and kickbacks for government officials, politicians, and middlemen who had helped facilitate the 2011 deal. The transaction appeared to be a reward for those who had engineered the return of the block's ownership to Malabu. This elaborate transfer of funds formed the basis of the international corruption scandal. The deal was no longer just a Nigerian affair. It had drawn in two of the world's largest energy companies and triggered investigations in multiple countries, including Italy, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom. The central allegation was that Shell and Eni knew, or should have known, that the money they were paying would not go to the Nigerian state but would end up in private pockets, effectively funding a massive bribery scheme. The OPL 245 deal had become a textbook case of grand corruption. The fallout from the 2011 deal led to a series of high-profile legal battles. In Italy, prosecutors in Milan launched a landmark corporate bribery trial. They charged Eni, Shell, and several of their executives, including Eni's CEO Claudio Descalzi, with international corruption. The case hinged on the accusation that the companies were aware that the $1.1 billion payment to Malabu would be used to bribe Nigerian officials. The trial lasted for years, generating thousands of pages of evidence and testimony. It was seen as a critical test of whether multinational corporations could be held accountable for corrupt deals made in foreign countries. However, the outcome was a stunning blow to prosecutors and anti-corruption advocates. In March 2021, the Italian court acquitted all defendants, including both companies and their executives. The court ruled that there was no case to answer, stating that the prosecution had failed to prove that a bribery scheme existed or that the companies were knowingly involved. The verdict was a major victory for Shell and Eni, who had consistently maintained that their actions were legal and that they had only dealt with the Nigerian government. The acquittal was later upheld on appeal, effectively ending the legal threat to the companies in Italy. In Nigeria, the story followed a similar path of legal frustration. The country's own anti-corruption agency, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, or EFCCC, filed charges against Dan Etet, a former attorney general named Mohamed Adoke, and others allegedly involved in the scheme. The Nigerian case focused on the domestic side of the scandal, alleging money laundering and the fraudulent nature of the deal. The legal proceedings dragged on for years, hampered by delays and complex legal arguments. The Nigerian government struggled to build a case that could withstand judicial scrutiny, particularly after the acquittals in Italy weakened the international narrative of corruption. Ultimately, the Nigerian cases also crumbled. In April 2024, a court in Abuja dismissed the charges against Mohamed Adoke and other defendants, citing a lack of evidence from the prosecution. This followed earlier acquittals of other figures connected to the case. With these rulings, the key individuals accused of orchestrating and benefiting from the OPL 245 deal in Nigeria were legally cleared of wrongdoing. The result was that despite years of international investigation and mountains of suspicious financial records, not a single major figure was successfully convicted of corruption in connection with the scandal, leaving a profound sense of impunity. Today, on August 18, 2025, OPL 245 remains undeveloped. More than a quarter century after it was first awarded, not a single barrel of oil has been commercially produced from this immensely valuable field. The block is a stranded asset, its vast reserves of oil and gas still locked beneath the seabed. The endless legal battles, ownership disputes, and the cloud of corruption have created a toxic environment for investment. No company has been willing or able to move forward with the multi-billion-dollar investment required for development, while its legal status remains contested and its history so deeply stained by scandal. This paralysis represents a colossal loss for Nigeria. The revenues that OPL 245 was supposed to generate have never materialized. At a time when the country faces significant economic challenges, including high debt, soaring inflation, and urgent needs for infrastructure and social services, the potential wealth of this oil block lies dormant. The opportunity cost is immense. The billions of dollars that could have been invested in education, healthcare, and power generation have been lost to decades of graft and gridlock. The story of OPL 245 is the story of Nigeria's squandered potential, a perfect metaphor for how resource wealth can be looted rather than leveraged for national development. The legacy of the scandal extends far beyond the lost revenue. It has inflicted deep damage on Nigeria's reputation and its fight against corruption. The failure to secure convictions in either Italy or Nigeria has sent a troubling message that it is possible for powerful individuals and corporations to engage in highly questionable deals and face no consequences. This outcome undermines public trust in the justice system and emboldens those who would seek to divert state assets for personal gain. For a country striving to attract legitimate foreign investment, the OPL 245 saga serves as a glaring red flag, a cautionary tale of the risks of doing business. Looking to the future, the fate of OPL 245 is still uncertain. The Nigerian government must now decide how to move forward. It could attempt to restart a clean and transparent licensing process, or it could remain entangled in the legal aftermath of the 2011 deal. Whatever path is chosen, the shadow of the scandal will loom large. For the people of Nigeria, the block is no longer a symbol of hope, but a painful reminder of a system that has failed them. Until OPL 245 is developed transparently for the benefit of the nation, it will stand as a monument to corruption and a stark lesson in lost opportunity.